through a semi-structured interview. We ask them to fill out this Achenbach thing, which is basically a mental health screen. We also were interested in some health risk things like smoking and drug use and that sort of stuff, so we included questions like that. We also have some administrative records on the extent to which they needed welfare to meet their basic needs, and so those are what I'm going to show you. We have few enough people that we ask them everything under the sun. We had a lot of variables. Under the laws of statistics, you can't do that much stuff, and so you have to pick some major outcomes and say, they said, you can have 3. What are your 3? So we said, okay, number of years of education you attain, your income to needs ratio, which is sort of the basic way of how well can you take care of yourself. In social adjustment, we picked avoiding crime, which is the most serious way to get in trouble with social adjustment. Okay. Educational attainment, that's rather nice. The red bars were treated. They had significantly more years of education at age 30. And the range within the sample was all the way from not getting out of high school. One person has a doctorate. One. And so they had more years of education. But this is the one I told you I could only ask 3 questions, but I cheated and asked a few more. I wanted to know what's the rate of getting out of college? 4 times more likely. Out of this sample, we had 15 college graduates, bachelor's or higher. 12 of them were in the treated group. 3 were in the control group. Doesn't mean you're doomed if you're in the control group, but look at the leg up those people got. I'm extraordinarily proud of that. And another thing to tell you about that is that the conventional wisdom is, yeah, that's girls, right? African American boys always bomb. The boys are more likely to have gotten out of college in our little sample of 12 that got out. We didn't see that effect. You know, it was just as likely that a boy would get out as a girl. I'm proud of that too. Income to needs ratio. To make a long story short, that's what it looks like. It looks good, but that's not, doesn't make the magic 05 level. Although in the treated group, they on average made the magic 3 that says, quote, middle class status, but not all of them did. And there's so much overlap in the distributions that you just don't quite get there. So can't talk about that one. So again, I cheat a little bit. There are other things we ask about their economic status. What kind of job have you got? Is it a prestigious job, or are you just doing the lowest paid, nobody wants to do it type jobs? What's your actual income? Now, this is self-reported, and there are all kinds of problems with that. But were you likely to be working at 30, or were you unemployed? If you are working, how consistently are you working? Which some economists say that's a more important question. And so we ask that. And then I showed you the thing about needing welfare. We make 2 hits here. They were more likely to have been working full-time. Well, we meant 30 hours a week by that over the last 2 years if they were treated. And they were 6 times more likely to have needed assistance if they were in the control group. Now, I should talk about that a little bit, because not that many people in either group needed it, and so you looked at it, but it's just eyeballed it, and I eyeballed it. That's my level of statistics. I got the records and went down and said, okay, you're in this group, and you got a hit, and you got a hit, and you got a hit. If you look at it, it's overwhelmingly different. But under the rules of statistics, again, it's kind of hard to show that. And so our brilliant statistician came up with the idea of saying, did you need help more than 10% of the time? And so she was able to show that. And the control group was 6 times more likely to fall there. Alas, this looks better than it really is. Our percent who Now, what our measure here was a self-reported, again, this is not official records, did you ever get convicted of a crime or misdemeanor? That was the question. And we just don't make it, folks. One of the fun things about the Perry preschool study, if you're familiar with that, is their reduction in crime for their treated preschoolers. We don't see it. That looks more different than it actually is. They're only 1 point apart. It's the right direction. But again, we once searched a study that I did with a criminologist when they were between 18 and 21. At age 18, these are official records of the state of North Carolina. The percents were almost identical of anybody who had a hit at all, and it was 1 percentage point higher for the treated group. So we just don't see it, sorry. But now let's go on to some of the other social adjustment stuff. We used a different mental health screen this time, and in contrast to what we saw when they were 21, we do not see a greater likelihood of, go down and look at that internalizing problems, that's where your depressives would be. We just don't see an effect there anymore. We use a different test, and they're older, so I can't interpret that for sure. I don't know what happened. Maybe they genuinely were a little better, feeling a little better about themselves. But fewer than 10% were in the clinical range in either group, and go back up there to externalizing, which that means you're a bad hat and you're aggressive and lie and steal and all that good stuff. Fewer than 15% in either group, these are self-descriptions, but describe themselves in the clinical range there, and again, it wasn't different, it's almost identical. Substance abuse, same difference. We had significantly fewer people said they smoked marijuana when they were 21. They still smoke it, but it's sort of at the same rate. We didn't see any difference, slight difference, 28% versus 24% were married at age 30, but not really anything. One we hit, and that was, and we saw this at 21, I forgot to tell you, the age of at initial parenthood. Now, the youngest mother in both groups was 15 when she had her child. But if you were in the treated group, on average, you delayed about almost 2 years having your first child. And to me, that is a whopping. It's based on mothers and fathers. Some people don't like to add fathers in about when age you have children, because who knows with men. But anyway, I think that delay in having a child makes a huge difference. Because one of the things that you can just see happening clinically, if you look at these case by case, is a girl will be on the track of, she's going to college and doing all this good stuff, and she gets pregnant and she drops out. And it doesn't mean her life's over, but it sure puts a glitch in things. Care of it. And so I think that that's an important benefit. I'm happy to see that. Why did it work? Remember that I said that the early cumulative risk was associated with the quality of the child's home environment. There's an important paper out. Lead author is my colleague Elizabeth Pangello. The quality of the home environment predicts by itself in both groups, if you put them together, it predicts whether you're going to get out of high school. Also, predicting whether you're going to get out is early. Well, let me back up. Predicting how much education you're going to get is also predicted by the quality of the early environment and by treatment. But they interact, and here's how they do. If you had a bad home environment and you're in the control group, the likelihood that you would get out of high school is depressed. And it clearly affects negatively your educational attainment. If you had a bad home environment and you're in the treated group, that is attenuated, which means that treatment somehow or another buffered you against that bad effect. So the fact that it kind of moderated what your risk was. And it also did that for that depression score at 21. I think that says that early treatment has a buffering effect for children. One of the things that I think really mattered was, I remember all that stuff I said about Craig paying good wages. The staff turnover was quite low. These children who were in the treated group, if they were from the most chaotic stuff in the world, and some of our families had a lot of trouble keeping it together, they knew that the van was going to come and get them, and they were going to come where the same people were there. They knew the rules, things were calm. They were there 5 days a week most of the time. We can't help thinking that that probably had something to do with kind of reducing the tension and anxiety that they were up against, which can possibly affect, some people think it affects brain development. We certainly think it can make it harder for a child to learn. Remember that we had them when they were very, very young. So we think that they were maybe more emotionally buffered against what was going on outside of there. And they were able to learn and explore during this period when brain growth is most rapid, those very, very early years. Okay. Now I'm going to ask a question and I'm going to give you an answer. Infant care is very expensive. It is expensive. The staff-to-child ratio is just astronomical, so that your labor costs are huge if you want to take care of babies in group care. Couldn't you do just as well if you waited till they were 4 or even 5 and got into public school? And I don't think you can, and I'm going to show you why. This is the actual design of the study. I told you we had a treated and a control group. I didn't tell you about the next thing. When they're 5 and ready to go to public school, we re-randomized both those groups. So that if you were in the treated group, half of you at random, they took the 48-month Stanford-Binet score and matched kids within the treated group. One of them was offered 3 more years in public school, and one of them wasn't. And so one group got 8 years, and one group got only 5. And that varies as to when they got it. But remember, that group got 8, preschool and follow-on, but the other group didn't get follow-on. Go to the control group, same thing happened. So that group started at 5. And they got the same 3 years, the same intensity of program as the ones who'd already had 5 years, got the 3 more. These kids get that same 3. And down there in the bottom, those kids didn't have any intervention from us. Not all those kids ended up staring at a blank wall for 5 years, you know. There were other programs in town. If we saw a child that was really stumbling, we nominated that child for services and got some of them into Head Start programs and stuff like that. We felt like, so anyway, the CC group got whatever was out there for kids in need in the community. And I want to show you the reading scores when those kids are 8. They're 8 years old. Look at that. My husband said, people look at that, they're going to think you made it up. But what I want you to look at is the difference between the 5 years only and the 3 years only, and look how much better ones with 5 years in early childhood were doing than the ones who were getting that boost starting when they were in kindergarten. Now, true, the 8 years are doing a little bit better than anybody, but the kids who only got the 3 years are not anywhere near as good as the ones who had 5 only. And I'm going to show you the same thing when they're 21. And if you'll look, the CE group's not even doing as well as the CC group at this age. So my answer to you is, can you do just as well if you wait till they're 5? Is no, you can't. So I hope you'll find that compelling. Now, I guess a lot of you have heard about Jim Hickman. He is in love with our study, and he wants to prove that everything we think is wrong, and he'll tell us how to do it, but not really. But anyway, he is convinced, and I'll show you one of his graphs, which I can't interpret as well as I wish I could, but I'll show you one of his graphs where he shows the rate of return for money that you invest in the early years versus if you wait until later to invest it, and how much return you can expect. Here are two of his quotes that I really like. I'll read you the bottom one. The best way to improve the schools is to improve the early environments of the children sent to them. I just love that one. But here's his, I've seen him do this in presentations, and he's no slouch. He won the Nobel Prize, so you can believe it if he says it. But look at how the rate of return drops off sharply as kids get older. You look at that and you'd think you might as well forget about working with high schoolers and job training and all the rest of it in terms of what it's going to buy you. Now, you might want to argue with him. Don't ask me the questions because I'm not smart enough to answer them, but I'm persuaded by this. He's using a lot of data from the preschool to show that, and their rate of return is better than ours because they have a crime effect and we don't have it. But nonetheless, when he drew this, he put our data in as well as data from other early childhood programs. So it's not just all preschool. What does that mean for the future of children? Well, I think it means that supporting early brain growth is very important. Now, I'm not saying every child needs to be in a child care center full time. I don't believe that. But increasingly, the way the welfare laws are working now, if you're a poor mother, you got to work or you lose your benefits. And the need for child care is not going away. It's bigger than ever. And if you need out-of-home care, it offers an opportunity to enhance the development of that child. You just shouldn't waste that, provided that you can really help that child if you can give him a stable, enriched learning environment. And the other thing that I think is important is I think the caregivers themselves need to stop thinking of themselves as the lowest paid people on the block who can't hack it, so they have to go into child care. They need to see themselves as the most important people on the block, that they're shaping the future of all the kids in America. They're doing a darn important job. We ought to pay them well to do it. We need to train them well to do it. And we ought to recognize that we need to provide that service for poor kids who need it. And so that's my soapbox I'd like to get on. And I definitely think that our data show that waiting to intervene until they get to public school means less benefit. So what can the Academic Distinction Fund do? Support early childhood education by whatever means and wherever you can. Now, I think I'm preaching to the choir because everything I've heard today makes me think that all of you think that too. But don't let people tell you that, oh, that doesn't matter, he'll learn it when he's ready, or, you know, the schools can take care of that. They can't. And so you need to battle that notion when you come up against it. I think you should support the upgrading of early child care staffs and education workforce. And I think that some of you are in the business community. Help other people who's they're looking at the bottom line. Help them to understand that they're losing money if they're short-sighted and say early childhood doesn't matter. So that's my story. I would like to end by, how am I doing on time? I would like to end by acknowledging all the people that were involved in this. Craig Ramey, who's, I guess, in the audience. There you are. You sneak. I didn't know you were back there.
I've enjoyed the presentation.
Anyway, Craig Ramey, PhD, developmental psychologist, was the founder of My Feast and of this study, along with Joe Sparling, who was an educational psychologist, and he and Isabel Lewis developed the curriculum that I showed you. And there are 3 pediatricians. I said we had an important medical arm. Dr. Collier was on site a great deal, and a great deal of important information about how babies make each other sick, shed viruses, and stuff like that have grown out of the Abasterian study too. A lot of work about the relationship between ear infections, when kids' hearing is compromised. What does that do to their language development? Not as much harm as people used to fear, and some of our data have shown that. And these are the later acknowledgements, or some of the people that also ran. I won't read these names, but you may recognize some of them. all of these people have made enormous contributions over the years. And the fact that I showed you that low attrition, we wouldn't have that without Carrie Bynum. She's now got the role of family coordinator, and it's thanks to her that we got all those people. We had many, many research assistants who made wonderful contributions over the years, and most of all, I want to acknowledge the families and the now adults who have stuck with us. And some of them are even proud of us. Now, I won't tell you who they are. That's one of my cardinal rules. I will never tell a reporter you can go talk to so-and-so. A few of them have outed themselves, but I won't do it. And these are our major funders. And I couldn't resist showing you that picture, so thank you very much. Let's talk about children at high risk here, because it's that child that I'm most concerned with, the one who might drop out of school without finishing, not be educated enough to take good care of itself to support a family when it grows up. What early childhood can do for that child is give him a leg up, a chance to do better than he might otherwise do. So I think early childhood can enhance the environment.
The neat thing about early childhood here in Louisiana and in the region, and I think all over the country, it's getting a lot more attention, and people are understanding now better than we have in the past the importance of investing early and often in our kids before they get to school. Those first 5 years of life are critical to our long-term outcomes, and you're seeing a lot more movement in that area amongst folks within the East Baton Rouge Parish school system as well as in the state school system.
One message from me, based on our research and some work that I didn't do but that economists have done with our data and others, is that the state needs to recognize that spending money in the earlier years is going to pay off better than waiting to spend it on the child later. And so if you have funds to invest in the future of children, think about putting them in the very early years.
What we're finding is that as we invest in pre-kindergarten, our community, our companies, our corporations are supporting us through programs from teaching children how to learn science and math in pre-K to what we're doing with our Distinguished Speakers series in helping educate our community by giving free community education on what it takes to get children ready to learn in kindergarten and first grade. In addition, we do quite a bit of work in parental involvement, getting parents involved in the education of their children in the schools and at home. I think most people are really happy to know that ADF is sticking with its flagship direction, and that is in giving teachers, awarding teachers teacher grants for their innovative practices in the classrooms. So we are continuing with the teacher grants as well. I think also it's important to know that ADF continues the way we started, and that is in building positive relationships with our communities, our stakeholders, educators, and also with our teachers and administrators, and collaborating on getting children ready and keeping them ready as they're in school to get to graduation. And so we put a lot of emphasis on positive relationships and collaborations with our community and working together as partners for our children in the East Baton Rouge Parish school system.
The Academic Distinction Fund has done a great job over the past year and a half in bringing down and presenting to the community lots of different speakers with national accolades to further educate us on the importance of early childhood and why it's the best place to invest in our kids. So everybody's enthusiastic about it. It's great to have these speakers in, and it's great for the community to learn more about this area of what we all think is important.
ExxonMobil is very proud to partner with ADF in bringing this lectureship series on early childhood development. We feel like workforce development in our community, especially in the area surrounding our plants, is very important, and early childhood development is a key success factor in bringing up future workforce for ExxonMobil.
This is not only for those corporations and foundations and others that may be considering investing in early childhood education, because it does pay off. It also is encouraging to educators and to our school systems to keep investing in early childhood education. We have child care providers who are here today that need to know that as they follow those high quality practices in child care, that it will definitely pay off for children getting into school prepared and ready to learn, as well as graduating from high school, and we really hope on to college or into their careers, whatever those careers may be. So we want them to leave knowing that investing in early childhood education is important and it does pay off.
If people have questions or like more information, what should they do?
Well, we encourage them to call us at 225-922-4560, the Academic Distinction Fund, or find us on our website, www.adfbr.org, where they can not only find us but learn more about what we're doing to help get children prepared to learn in kindergarten and first grade. They'll find out about our resources, materials, and how they can get involved with ADF too, whether it's through volunteering, supporting what we do, and we don't turn down any donations as well. So www.adfbr.org for the Academic Distinction Fund, and we'll look forward to hearing from them as well.